Okay. Hello and welcome to Ignited Minds podcast. I'm excited to bring you another episode filled with thought-provoking insights and discussions. Today we have the privilege of hosting a distinguished guest, Jenna Metera. Could you please introduce yourself and maybe what kind of work you're involved in?
Yeah, so I'm Jenna, and I'm a sixth year PhD student in Professor Olivia Grave's Extreme Materials Lab at UC San Diego. And as our lab name suggests, we deal with a lot of extreme materials, primarily in ceramics and amorphous metals. However, my research is in oxide ceramics for electronic applications.
So, what specific areas are you, I guess, passionate about in your research?
So, my research primarily focuses around the chemical synthesis of a compound called bismuth ferrite, which has been used in the past um, as a replacement for lead-based ceramics like lead titanate or PZT and things like that. So this is an environmentally friendly, non-toxic alternative that exhibits the same type of properties, and with the proper processing of the material after it's synthesized can exhibit the same types of properties as the lead-based materials.
Hmm. So, I saw that you've been working with this, and I was wondering what exactly drove you to kind of apply this material, and how do you anticipate that it will continue impacting the materials science industry?
Well, I first got interested in it when I was an undergrad.
Mm.
I did some work on this with my senior thesis with lead-based materials, actually, and um, the electronic characterization techniques that we can use to evaluate like capacitance or resistance, stuff like that, conductivity, and how the material you're using impacts those properties is something that really interested me. Going into graduate school, having the agency to be able to change how the material is made to impact those properties was even, you know, an emerging interest to me. And now, 6 years later, we're finally moving forward to seeing that data and seeing how we can really impact it.
Yeah, so how do you think I guess this overall trend will impact the greater field of materials science overall?
So, um, I mean, each piece of information or each data point we get is like a little nugget that can move research forward, right? Um, there are plenty of different things we can do with my material. It's not just electronic properties.
Mm.
Um, but that being said, there is a lot more research to be done. And I hope that my topic generates interest and for more people to think of other ways to use the material.
What do you hope that your material can kind of achieve in a long-term or near-term future?
Well, currently, I'm not sure if you're aware, but in the European Union right now, since like 2003 or so, there was a legislation passed called Rose Compliance, which basically says that anything that contains lead in it, even if it's in the compound, cannot be bought or produced in the European Union. The United States has been looking at passing similar laws. Obviously, we're a little farther behind compared to them. But in the manufacturing environment and the use of these of the components that contain these lead compounds, if we can replace that with something that with a material that does the same thing, basically, but it's not bad for us and or bad for the environment, that would be ideal, right? And there are um, plenty of other reasons to use it, but if we could get our legislators to do their job and make it safe for us, then that would be ideal, right?
Mhm. So I guess going towards the topic of AI, as we know, it's been a growing presence in so many different fields and industries. How do you see your own research being kind of integrated with artificial intelligence to maybe make it more efficient or easier to do different types of research?
So pertaining to AI, I think it is definitely useful to predict new materials or new properties that materials could have. Uh, but that, of course, requires you to train it.
Hmm.
And since this technology is so new, that being AI, that we need to apply systems that we already know a lot about. And that has to do with experimentally. So any type of experimental data that we have that somebody actually in a chemistry lab really made uh, and compiled that data and used that to train the AI, then you're actually going to get some good results from that. So the more data points we can provide AI, the more real data points we can provide AI, not from simulations, the more correct responses we're going to get from it. And then maybe in the future we can migrate that data that we produced in the lab to AI being able to predict the properties or give us a an indication of a type of material we could make to achieve some type of properties that we want uh, from that data.
Yeah, I did. I actually wrote a literature review on this very specific topic. And
Mm-hmm.
AI has so many different applications and how it can be used, but it's always starts very low and you have to build it up constantly to make it as good as it can be.
For sure. Yeah.
So, based on this kind of baseline for AI and the idea that machine learning is definitely uh, necessary for it to keep growing and you have to keep growing AI yourself also. Uh, how do you think this may impact the general industry of material science?
So the couple biggest things are it'll save tons of time and money.
Yeah,
Um, if we could, for example, come up with a material that is very slightly different from another one that we already have trained the system with. But um, well, the thing is, in material science, you can add um, very small amounts of different metals to, or any other type of element to your material. It's all chemistry, right?
yeah,
And when you do that, you can get massive changes in your material properties, be that mechanical properties, electrical properties, optical properties, stuff like that, just from a tiny change in your unit cell or your lattice structure. So, um, being that you're not actually changing that much about your material and you're only adding a little bit of something different into it, perhaps in the future, this technology will be able to predict that without actually going through the arduous process of the real lab work before we decide, okay, we should add, um, neodymium instead of, uh, europium to something, or vice versa, right? So you can take a compound like alumina or Al2O3 and see if you want to dope it with any element. And we know so much about alumina already, and we can put that information into it to see, what the change in the what the chemical change in the lattice does to its properties in the end.
Yeah, instead of having to, I guess, test so many different combinations, you're able to run simulations on the same thing, and you're able to kind of optimize the materials without having to actually uh, do experimental testing.
Exactly.